Good day and welcome. Tonight, a tense exchange in a Senate oversight hearing is reigniting a national debate over gun law enforcement, public safety, and the limits of executive power.
Senator Reid.
Chairman Moran, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes. Madam Attorney General, on May 16th, the Department of Justice announced that it dropped litigation to enforce the law against forced reset triggers. These are devices that can be installed in a few minutes on guns like a AR-15 in order to match the rate of fire of a machine gun. In fact, according to demonstrations on YouTube and elsewhere, you can dispose of an entire 30-round magazine in about 4 seconds, so it is a fully automatic weapon. In the press release announcing the settlement, you are quoted as saying the settlement, quote, will enhance public safety. How does putting more automatic weapons, which have been against the law since the 1930s, enhance public safety?
Thank you for that question, Senator Reid. What that will do, it will enhance public safety by settling the litigation, because it is a guarantee that the manufacturer will not put that in handguns. We settled those cases because it was the right decision under the law. Nothing's comical about this. These devices are materially the same as bump stocks. The Supreme Court said last year that they are not machine guns under federal law. We followed the law. We will continue to follow the law. I'm a career prosecutor. I'm going to do everything in my power to keep Americans safe. What we should be concerned about up here are all the illegal guns flowing into our country by illegal aliens who have been free to walk into our country over the past 4 years. And we have taken thousands of those guns off of the street, including drugs and including violent criminals.
Excuse me. How can you go ahead and say we're more safe today because they will not put these automatic firing devices in pistols, which have magazines of about maybe 20 rounds at most, or maybe 10, and have a range much less than an automatic weapon? Have you ever fired an automatic weapon?
I have.
Well, you understand then that that's a device that was designed to kill people. It's not a hunting rifle. It's not a target rifle. It's mass fire. And you made a compromise saying, well, don't put them in pistols, but you can go ahead and put them out in automatic weapons.
We followed the law. We will continue to follow the law. You and I clearly disagree on the Second Amendment.
Well, I agree that machine guns are not appropriate in the United States, and since 1930 or so, we've outlawed machine guns. And these semi-automatic weapons that are produced in volume are so easily converted to automatic weapons that you're ignoring the reality, frankly.
I'm following the law, Senator.
Well, yes, that's right. By the way, how many American weapons are going into Mexico in a year? What are we doing to stop American weapons going to Mexico to arm their gangs?
Well, we need to support that on both sides.
Well, what are you
doing? What
are you doing to support it on our side?
We are arresting people who have illegal firearms in our country. We're not sending people back to Mexico with guns. We're throwing them in our jails and prosecuting them.
You're allowing them to be purchased in the United States and driven across the border. Most of these gangs have completely turned themselves into military organizations because they're using American weapons, American technology, and your argument is that, well, we're not doing anything about them.
No, not my argument. That was the policy of the last 4 years of the Biden administration with open borders. You could come back and forth across our borders. You could buy guns. You could take guns off the street. You could shoot people in our country. You could bring fentanyl into our country. You could bring methamphetamine into our country. You could bring cocaine into our country. That was the previous administration.
No,
not this
What
one.
are you doing to stop the flow of weapons into Mexico?
We are arresting flow of weapons into. Our borders are closed. We are arresting illegal cartels. Sinaloa from Mexico, MS-13 from El Salvador, TDA. We are arresting from Venezuela. ATF has seized over 14,600 guns since Donald Trump has been president. That's a 33% increase from the last administration. And think about that. That's with our borders secure.
Were they coming into?
So they weren't doing anything.
Were they coming into the United States?
Our borders are closed. They're not coming in or out of the United States now across Mexico. We've done a 33% increase in firearm seizures. Think about that. Think about that, Senator, from the last administration. 33% increase. And our borders are closed. So we're getting all these guns off the streets that came into our country. And I'm so proud of the work of the men and women in law enforcement.
I don't think you've done anything to severely interrupt the arming of Mexican gangs, because that's really not what your focus, and I think your focus should be on that. But thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And can I just add one thing? And
no,
because the borders are closed, we are stopping the guns from going to Mexico.
Well, let me ask you another question. If the borders are closed, why do we have a division headquarters of the United States Army in Fort Huachuca and military elements across the board when the borders close and Border Patrol can handle it?
As former military, I would think you would know the answer to that, to keep Americans safe.
No, I think it's to promote the president's policies on the border, and the readiness of our forces is suffering as a result. Thank you.
Senator Britt.
Attorney General Pam Bondi faced sharp questioning over the Department of Justice decision to drop litigation involving forced reset triggers, devices critics say effectively turn semi-automatic rifles into machine gun equivalents. Before we get into the details, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so you never miss in-depth coverage like this. At the center of the confrontation was Senator Reid, who challenged the Justice Department's claim that dropping enforcement actions against forced reset triggers somehow enhances public safety. These devices, which can be installed on rifles like the AR-15 in minutes, allow a shooter to fire at a rate approaching fully automatic weapons. Demonstrations online show a 30-round magazine emptied in roughly 4 seconds. For context, true machine guns have been heavily restricted under federal law since the 1930s, with civilian ownership largely banned. Senator Reid's question was simple but pointed. How does allowing more of these devices into circulation make Americans safer? Attorney General Bondi's response leaned heavily on recent Supreme Court precedent. She argued that the Department of Justice is bound by last year's ruling that bump stocks and similar devices do not meet the legal definition of machine guns under federal law. According to Bondi, the settlement ensures manufacturers will not install these triggers in handguns, framing the decision as a legal necessity rather than a policy preference. She repeatedly emphasized that the DOJ is following the law as written, not rewriting it based on political pressure. If you find this kind of legal context helpful, make sure to subscribe for more breakdowns that go beyond the headlines. But the exchange quickly moved beyond statutory interpretation and into philosophy. Senator Reid argued that focusing on legal definitions ignores practical reality. Semi-automatic rifles are already mass-produced, widely available, and easily modified. Adding devices that dramatically increase firing speed, he argued, undermines the spirit of long-standing machine gun bans. From his perspective, the law may be lagging behind technology, and public safety suffers as a result. Bondi pushed back, shifting the focus from domestic gun modification to border security and international crime. She argued that the real threat comes from illegal firearms tied to cartel activity and transnational gangs. She cited a 33% increase in firearm seizures by federal agencies since President Trump took office, claiming thousands of guns have been taken off the streets. She attributed this increase to stricter border enforcement and aggressive action against groups like MS-13, the Sinaloa cartel, and Venezuelan criminal networks. If you want continued coverage of how domestic policy connects to global crime, subscribe to stay informed. This pivot sparked another clash. Senator Reid redirected attention to Mexico, arguing that American-made weapons continue to arm powerful criminal organizations south of the border. These groups, he said, have evolved into paramilitary forces using U.S. firearms and technology. Bondi rejected the premise that the current administration is ignoring this problem. She insisted that closed borders and increased seizures are already reducing the flow of weapons. She framed the issue as a correction from the previous administration, which she accused of lax enforcement and open border policies. The disagreement revealed a deeper divide. One side views gun violence primarily as a domestic regulatory issue. The other sees it as inseparable from immigration enforcement and organized crime. If these policy divides matter to you, hit subscribe so you can keep following how they play out in Congress. The exchange ended with a final sharp question about military involvement at the border. Senator Reid questioned why U.S. Army units remain deployed if the border is, as Bondi claimed, effectively closed. He suggested military readiness is being sacrificed to advance political messaging. Bondi responded that the presence exists to keep Americans safe, a line that underscored the broader theme of the hearing: competing definitions of safety, competing interpretations of the law, and competing visions of government responsibility. What viewers should take away from this exchange is not just who argued more forcefully, but how much of the gun debate now hinges on court rulings rather than congressional action. If you appreciate reporting that explains the legal, political, and real-world implications behind moments like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We will continue breaking down what Washington says, what the law actually does, and how it affects everyday Americans.